The auction house on station Kepler 442 reeked of desperation and disinfectant. Ezra stood with his arms crossed, watching the parade of exotic beings shuffle across the platform under harsh fluorescent lights. Collectors and wealthy traders filled the seats around him, their eyes gleaming with the peculiar hunger of those who bought sentient creatures like furniture. He shouldn't have been there. But the tip had been solid. Smugglers were moving rare species through this station, and if the intelligence was correct, someone from a protected world was about to be sold. The auctioneer, a blob-like Geltarian with too many mouths, gurgled enthusiastically as a cage was wheeled forward. And now, gentle males and gentle females, a true prize. From the quarantined world of Vulpenia 7, a genuine foxmorph, docile, trainable, and completely exotic. Ezra's jaw tightened. Vulpenia 7 wasn't just quarantined, it was under council protection. Selling one of its inhabitants was a dozen different violations of galactic law. The cage door opened and she emerged. Grace moved with a fluidity that belied her chains. Auburn fur covered her arms and legs, fading to cream at her throat. Large, intelligent amber eyes swept the crowd with barely concealed contempt. Her ears, delicate and vulpine, flattened against her skull as jeers and catcalls erupted from the audience. A bushy tail, matted and dulled by captivity, hung limp behind her. Bidding starts at 5,000 credits, the auctioneer announced. Numbers flew. 10,000, 15, 25. Ezra watched Grace's eyes. Most captives looked broken or terrified. She looked furious, calculating. Even now she was looking for an escape route, studying the guards, measuring distances. 50,000 credits, Ezra said clearly. The room fell silent. It was an absurd amount for a pet. The auctioneers' mouths formed wet smiles. 50,000. Going once. 60. A Rotharian merchant half stood from his seat. 100,000, Ezra countered flatly. No one bid against him after that. Grace didn't speak as Ezra led her from the auction house. She walked 3 paces behind him as the guards had trained her, but he could feel the weight of her stare on his back. When they reached his ship, a battered but reliable freighter called the Meridian, he stopped at the boarding ramp and turned to face her. "You can take those off," he said, gesturing to her restraints. She stared at him suspiciously. Ezra sighed and pulled a key from his pocket, the one they'd given him with the ownership papers he'd already decided to burn. He unlocked her wrist cuffs first, then the collar. The metal fell away, leaving raw marks on her skin and fur. Grace rubbed her wrists, never taking her eyes off him. "What do you want from me, human?" Her voice was rough from disuse, accented with clicks and chirps that her translator implant struggled to render. "Nothing," Ezra said. "You're free to go." Her eyes narrowed. "Free? You paid 100,000 credits for me. I paid 100,000 credits to get you out of there. What you do next is your choice." For a long moment she simply stared at him. Then her nose twitched, scenting the air around him. Foxmorphs had enhanced senses. He'd done his research on the flight over. "You're a bounty hunter," she said finally. "I can smell the weapons, the old blood on your clothes. You hunt people." "I hunt slavers," Ezra corrected. "And smugglers. People who break the protection laws." He held up the ownership papers and ignited them with a plasma lighter, letting the ashes scatter in the station's artificial breeze. "You were never merchandise, Grace. That's your name, right?" "I heard one of the handlers use it." She flinched at her name. "How did you— I make it my business to know," Ezra said simply. "Look, Vulpenia 7 is 3 jumps from here. I can take you there, or I can drop you anywhere else you want to go. I have contacts who can forge you documentation, get you set up somewhere safe." Grace's tail began to swish, slowly at first, then with increasing agitation. "Why?" The word came out almost as a growl. "Humans don't do things for nothing. Everyone wants something." Ezra met her gaze steadily. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because you're a person, not a pet. Because if I didn't, you'd end up in some collector's mansion. And I wouldn't be able to sleep at night." Pretty words, she said, but some of the hostility had leaked from her voice. "They're the truth." Ezra turned toward the ship. "You've got 12 hours to decide. I've got a cabin you can use. Lock from the inside. Food processor is keyed to Vulpinian dietary requirements. I updated it before I came to the auction. Bathroom's got a grooming station." He walked up the ramp, leaving her standing in the docking bay. Grace didn't try to escape. Ezra found her in the observation deck 3 hours later, staring out at the stars. She'd cleaned up, Her fur gleamed now, properly groomed, and she'd found clothes in the cabin that actually fit her frame. "I can't go back," she said without turning around. "To Vulpinia 7, I mean." Ezra leaned against the doorframe. "Why not?" "Because they'll ask questions. How I was taken, why I couldn't escape." Her tail drooped. "In my culture, to be captured is shameful, weak. I'd be an outcast. That's not fair." "No," she agreed quietly, "but it's how it is." They stood in silence for a moment. "The smugglers who took you," Ezra said. "I've been tracking their operation for 6 months. They've got a facility on Tarsus Prime where they process captives before selling them. Dozens of species, maybe hundreds of prisoners." Grace turned to look at him, her ears perking forward. "You're going after them. That's the plan. Alone?" Ezra shrugged. "I usually work alone." Her amber eyes studied him with new intensity. Then she did something unexpected. She moved closer, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her fur, and pressed her forehead briefly against his shoulder. It was a strange gesture, intimate in a way he didn't fully understand. "Among my people," Grace said softly, "there is a concept. Keisha. It means one who sees you truly, one who values your spirit over your form." She pulled back, meeting his eyes. "You called me a person, not a pet. You're the first one who has since they took me." "Because that's what you are," Ezra said simply. "In my culture, such a one is worthy of being called mate."
"Not in your human sense. We have no such bond yet."
"But mate as in equal, partner, one worthy of trust." Her tail swished once, decisively. "I'm going with you to Tarsus Prime." "Grace, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to," she interrupted, a fierce growl underlying her words. "I choose to. Those smugglers have others like me, others who've been caged and sold. You freed one. We can free more." Ezra studied her, really looked at her, not as a victim, not as someone who needed saving, but as what she was. A warrior who'd had her claws clipped and was ready to grow them back. "All right," he said. "Partner." Grace's muzzle split in what might have been a smile, showing sharp white teeth. "Mate," she corrected firmly. "I've claimed you now, human. That's how it works, won't is it?" Ezra couldn't help but smile back. "Yes, you'll learn our customs. I'll learn yours." She moved toward the door, then paused. "And Ezra? Thank you for seeing me." After she left, Ezra stood alone in the observation deck, watching the stars wheel past. He'd gone to that auction to save one person. Somehow he'd ended up with a partner, a mate in her words, and a renewed sense of purpose. Humans, he reflected, had a peculiar talent for finding allies in the strangest places, and Grace, fierce and free once more, was exactly the kind of ally the galaxy's forgotten needed. The Meridian turned toward Tarsus Prime, and 2 unlikely partners prepared for war.